Oh wow. I was not expecting to start making this video so soon, but I began writing this script about a month ago after getting some ideas from the competitive community, since it turned out my last list wasn't quite as exhaustive as I thought. Then I got really busy with some real life things. I may be getting a job soon. This may be a good thing though, thanks to the timing of the Season 8 flight, which has more things coming to Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. Anyway, Season 8, like Season 7, is another major update to Halo the Master Chief Collection. Halo 3 ODST saw a nice update to Firefight, Halo 3 got a new map, Halo Reach has more helmets, we finally have file share, good for people who want to share their creations made on Forge. This was already on consoles, but now it's a feature on PC. Speaking of which, the scope of this video is the Windows version of Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. There are a few differences between the Windows and console versions, but most of these issues affect both the console and PC versions. As always, you should report bugs on Halo Waypoint if you find them. If you paid for this game, especially if you paid for it multiple times like me, then you deserve to have a version of the game that properly represents the game's legacy. But do not harass the developers to get it. Doing that is a surefire way to get shut out. You have an opportunity to be heard, so if you want the game to actually be fixed, you should spend this opportunity being constructive. Just like the last video, I'm going to quickly gloss over all the stuff that I talked about in the previous video that wasn't fixed then. Then I'm going to add a few new things that I didn't talk about previously, whether it's because I forgot to add it or I simply didn't know about it. I spent hours researching a lot of this stuff, so I hope this is useful. Interpolation is even better. They fixed dynamic lights, camera shaking is fixed, the rocket launcher firing animation was fixed too, but now the shotgun readying animation has an issue, but it's getting close to on par with my Chimera mods implementation. Nice! 3D environmental audio is mostly fixed. Reverb sounds just about right, attenuation and occlusion work properly, and the Doppler works mostly. There are a few things that aren't Doppler shifted, which were in the original Xbox games, such as the klaxons and teleporters. But otherwise, it's really good. Equipment rotations are still gone. As mentioned previously, this was disabled to make the game more in line with Xbox, which didn't have equipment rotations. And as mentioned previously, they could have just done that with a classic weapon setting instead. Considering they have most of the other features from the Gearbox version, this is just inconsistent, and Blood Gulch looks much better with the rotations too. Classic HUD is now present. It works well and is a solid improvement over both the Anniversary HUD and the Gearbox HUD. The meters do appear to have some scaling artifacts not present in, say, Jesse's HUD, which uses redrawn meters. The HUD text is still small. It's not unreadable or anything, just different. But overall, it's a very welcome improvement to the game. A functional server browser is now present through the custom games browser. Direct IP connectivity still doesn't exist. Obviously, this isn't a focus for games as a service system, but like all services, it can go down at any moment for any reason. Just take Halo PC as released by Gearbox. The master server goes down quite a lot, but I can still play online multiplayer because of direct IP. With quality of life improvements like favorite servers being added by the community through mods, this feature is used pretty extensively. Community-hosted dedicated servers are still not a thing too. Custom map support? Again, no. You can play custom maps, but they aren't supported as in you can just drop one in and play it. You still have to turn off easy anti-cheat, replace an existing map, and then replace the custom map with the original map when you're done. Not to mention it's easy to start the game with anti-cheat on when you don't intend to. Input issues are still present. It's simply not consistent. Basically, anything that is affected by how long you hold down the trigger, whether it's the spread of a weapon or whether or not something gets charged, is affected by this. In the description I linked a video with more information on this. The motion sensor was fixed in Season 7 after the flight. Heat meter and sniper ticks were all fixed with the introduction of the classic HUD. Audio playback has been improved. Dialogue sounds right, but vehicle engines are still tied to frame rate. And we still have anniversary sounds even when said anniversary sounds are disabled. I have linked an unlisted video regarding vehicle engines being tied to frame rate if you want to watch it. Overall, half the things in the previous video that weren't fixed when I made it got fixed or addressed, and some of these were fairly big issues. So, here are the things that I didn't cover in the last video for whatever reason. Either I didn't know about it, I didn't figure out a way to reproduce it, or I just forgot to put it in. Hit registration inconsistency. Hit registration has a number of consistency issues, and I got an overwhelming number of people requesting me to talk about this. On MCC, the game uses client-side hit detection for the sniper rifle and pistol. That is, if you land a shot on your screen, it will tell the server it did this, and the server will apply the damage. For all other weapons and projectiles, it does not use any sort of ping compensation, which is odd for a game in 2021. Even at low pings, this can cause weapons to become unreliable. For example, a shotgun blast that should have instantly killed may only do minor damage instead, or even no damage. At higher pings, in order to get anything to land, you have to lead your shots to get any hit registration for those other weapons. Also, shooting at weapons on the ground causes them to spin unless you're not the host and you use one of these weapons. It's worth noting that on custom lobbies, the host doesn't have to lead at all, commonly called called host advantage. This can be balanced by dedicated servers, which is what the custom games browser uses, but the inherent issue of leading won't go away. This behavior of having to lead shots is actually not unlike the netcode from Halo PC as released by Gearbox, except the Halo PC dedicated server also had a mod that added in ping compensation without any changes to the client or the netcode. Such a mod would not be feasible on MCC due to anti-cheat, which would lock you out of most features of the game, including the new custom games browser. Ideally, we should have client-side hit detection all the way or use server authoritative hit detection with rollbacks for all of the other weapons. With client-side hit detection, all of your shots are guaranteed to connect, and it's the simplest implementation of ping compensation. If you see the bullet hit, then you do damage. If you don't see the bullet hit, then you don't do damage. Essentially, blood shots don't happen because the server never disagrees with the client. Barring significant packet loss, of course. With server authoritative hit detection, it instead rolls each object back in time based on ping to check if an object would have hit on the player's screen. One argument against server-side hit detection is that it's inherently less reliable. It's worth noting that for a game like Halo, because server-side hit detection is more prone to desyncing, the experience will on average be worse than client-side hit detection. Most of the weapons have randomized spread, even including all of the precision weapons, so bullets are already by default not in sync with the server, and this inherent desync is further compounded with ping. It might not be that bad if the server is very local, but with server authoritative hit detection, many players in regions such as Australia will find their experience to be less than desirable as they are often matched with US players and US servers despite having 200 milliseconds of ping at best. Client-side hit detection does not have these issues, and while anomalies like being hit behind walls are still an issue, this is much more fair than not being allowed to hit anything since it happens to anyone at any ping and is less frustrating to experience. It's also far less damaging to your performance in the game. This is simply the nature of online play and can't really be fixed because of the laws of physics. Either way, players should not have to lead based on their ping, as this is not consistent and it provides a very disproportionate advantage to players with lower ping, even if the difference is just a few milliseconds. Just a couple ticks can make all the difference for a weapon like the shotgun, which is mostly an all-or-nothing weapon up close, but is now rendered unreliable if you don't know your ping. Overshield visual issues. The overshield has a bug where if you pick it up at 0 shield, you will not be able to see any shield damage until the player's shields recharge again. That is, the player's shields have to naturally recharge, thus the player has to drop below a normal shield and recharge by itself. This bug also prevents the popping effect from appearing when shields are drained. This appears to be an oversight and it was also present on the Xbox version. Nevertheless, the visual issue may cause the player to think their shot did not land when it did, and considering the aforementioned netcode issues, this conclusion is perfectly logical and is not out of the realm of possibility. Shooting is inconsistently delayed. On MCC, shooting is delayed by a single tick or 33 milliseconds if you are hosting a customs game. This does not apply to single-player games, nor does it apply if you are connected as a client, including hosting on the custom games browser. Considering there is client-side hit detection for the pistol and sniper rifle, this also unnecessarily puts the host at a disadvantage. Also, ideally, a game should control the same in all instances, whether on single-player or multiplayer, but again, this isn't the case with CEA even in the same game mode. It's worth noting that the original Xbox version also had a similar issue, 1 tick delay on multiplayer but no delay on single-player. Teleporter re-entry distance is too short. I made a short video about this a while ago, but the teleporter re-entry distance in MCC is set too low. To demonstrate this, I made a test map where the teleporter is placed in the very center, and the floor has a few clearly marked rings. Note that your actual location is a bit behind the reticle since you can't aim all the way down, so I'll put an indicator for reference. Basically, on all versions of the game, the teleporter entry distance is half a world unit, or 1.5 meters. However, if you exit a two-way teleporter, then you can't re-enter it until you've moved about 1 world unit away, about 3 meters, except on CEA, which has the re-entry distance at half of this, half a world unit. After a few minutes of debugging, I was able to make a patch for this, but of course, you can't play with this fix if anti-cheat is enabled. The multiplayer maps aren't the same as Xbox. The maps on MCC have a number of subtle differences from the Xbox version. Some of these are geometrical differences, but some Gearbox maps have bugs the original Xbox maps didn't have. Blood Gulch, for example, has a few light map UV errors that weren't present on Xbox. Some of these maps also have different equipment spawns. In the case of Sidewinder, the meta is also completely changed, with the introduction of two-way teleporters, allowing people to score quick captures in CTF by teleporting directly into the bases, thus bypassing the entire map itself. There are a few solutions. MCC could wholesale replace the maps with their Xbox equivalents, or they could have them as map variants from the main menu. There are community-made options to play these maps, but as mentioned previously, custom maps aren't supported and are a bit tedious to use right now. The sun, as it turns out, is not actually fixed. It's just broken in a different way now. While it's the correct size regardless of resolution, it's now actually dependent on aspect ratio instead. Playing the game at 4:3 results in the sun looking a lot different than if playing at 16:9. If 343 Industries intends the classic visuals to match Xbox 1:1, even including the same blocky 2001 era DXT compression instead of opting for cleaner versions of these assets, then ideally playing playing the game at the original 4:3 aspect ratio should yield around the same results as Xbox, barring of course the improved texture filtering, where wider aspect ratios like 16:9 should look the same but with a wider field of view. For the most part it does, but this is one of the few discrepancies still remaining. Contrails are tied to frame rate. The contrail decay rate is tied to frame rate. This is something I actually fixed in Chimera, although it was actually originally fixed in the Volps mod by Michelle, but I did something similar. Basically, at higher frame rates, contrails end up being smaller than they should as they end up dying quicker. First-person field of view in cutscenes. The first-person field of view in cutscenes is too wide. This is especially obvious in levels like the Silent Cartographer and Assault in the Control Room. The random field of view change is quite jarring. Anytime you're in a cutscene that uses a first-person camera, it should usually use the first-person field of view to make transitioning from a cutscene to gameplay seamless. Also, when loading custom edition maps, the HUD is a bit too dark, especially with meters. I imagine this is due to sharing code with CEA's HUD, but it works too differently on a fundamental level. Where custom edition uses the color channel as the actual color of the HUD, CEA uses these channels individually for various purposes. The scope blur shader has a rendering error when trying to zoom in while having a higher field of view. At best, this can be distracting. At worst, this can be a bit headache-inducing. Classic controls do not match Xbox. When using the classic control setting, acceleration does not match Xbox at the same sensitivity. MCC on the classic setting lacks any acceleration regardless of the acceleration setting. The original Xbox version has a setting in the map file itself to determine the acceleration time, and on unmodified maps, this is 1 second. Also, the turning speed is too slow. At 3 sensitivity, it takes several seconds to make a complete rotation, where the same amount of time sees the original Xbox version at the same sensitivity making nearly 3 rotations. Obviously, most people aren't going to be spinning this fast, but the point is to show that the controls are significantly different. I do think having an option to use something better than the original control scheme is good, which is why I prefer Universal Bumper Jumper, as it provides a consistent way to control the game and it doesn't restrict meleeing and jumping while moving. However, the option to match the original game is important for muscle memory for those who have spent years on a particular control scheme. No split screen on the PC version. The PC version of MCC still does not support split screen, instead leaving it exclusive to the console version. Split screen is not inherently a console-only feature, as there are plenty of PC games made today that support the feature, and since MCC on PC has controller support also supporting the same controllers used on consoles, it would certainly make sense for it to also support multiple controllers at the same time, just like the console version. With the sheer connectivity modern PCs have, it isn't surprising that PC is one of the best ways to play local multiplayer, when developers are nice enough to add it in as a feature in their games, of course. Traditionally, many developers didn't because PC generally always had online multiplayer, but since online multiplayer is an option in consoles as well, and people still use split screen, although probably fewer players than before, and the fact that PC supports a wide variety of controllers, and the fact that it's a staple in the Halo franchise besides Halo 5, it only makes sense that the PC version of MCC should have the feature as well. I mean, Stubbs the Zombie has it. Yeah, that game. You should play it, it's actually fun. Anyway, if it's there, people will use it, and it's why 343 Industries should consider adding it to the PC version of MCC. As always, there are plenty of good things to say too about CEA, as the improvements should not go unrecognized. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary right now provides the best visual presentation of all the Halo CE versions, even despite the few remaining visual issues. And for $10, or $5 if it's on sale, which is every once in a while, you also get the campaign with co-op, something not present on the Gearbox version. You also get access to the complete expanded multiplayer of the Gearbox version. Really, overall, as far as being faithful to the original, MCC is very compelling now. It edges out the Gearbox version even with mods, and 343 Industries have done a wonderful job with that in just the past 2 seasons alone. It makes me really happy to see the original intended experience being restored, but is this the version to play? Maybe. Maybe not. There are still a few major issues that keep it from being a solid recommendation for me, or for some people, even a flimsy one. Even despite the fact that this game has come a long way, the issues with Halo CE's input, the lack of ping compensation for most weapons, things like the teleporter distance being too low, makes it difficult to say it's the definitive version of the game, as these are issues other versions simply don't have, either thanks to mods like my own Chimera mod, or just the fact it never had them. Yes, the game definitely looks the best, but doesn't play the best. For some, this might not be a big deal. They'll see the improved graphics, and accept the other bugs as a compromise, and that's completely valid. For others, those who prefer the gameplay to be there as well, it's like nails on a chalkboard. While it's possible to make mods that fix these problems, in fact I've actually made such mods myself for MCC, these types of mods basically function like cheats. That is, they'll inject and modify code. Easy Anti-Cheat will undoubtedly ban you if you do this, thus with such fixes you are only limited to single player and customs through Xbox Live, so you lose out on the shiny new custom games browser as well as matchmaking. I am hopeful these will get addressed someday in an official capacity, since they have been fixing a number of the other heavy hitters lately. In fact, fact, if just those gameplay issues were fixed, it would be much easier to say just play MCC. And then if all of the issues were fixed, well, then we would finally have the game we should have had almost 18 years ago. I know, I've said it a million times, but I'll say it 1,000,001. The gameplay issues are one of the main reasons why, despite MCC otherwise being the better option, people continue to play the original Xbox version of the game using older CRT televisions at 640 by 480 at barely 30 frames per second, with consoles that are not just almost 20 years old, but were also made with hardware that basically eats itself. Of course, it's up to 343 Industries if they want to actually pursue this. Don't get me wrong, they're doing a good job already, but it's not quite there. Not yet, at least. Hopefully in a future update it will be, since the latest seasons have been pretty good. But we'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, I hope you have a wonderful day.